Hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting season of the Platinum Draft League. My name is Monotone Excitement, coach of the Cold War Cryogonals, and it feels really good to be back. We took a little break to do our off-season. I did not participate in the off-season, but I helped out. I was one of the sort of main coaches for the two little teams we did, and our team actually did well. We actually managed to squeeze out a victory over the other team, which is very good. But now we're here because I want to prove I'm not just a mentor, I'm also a strong player and a strong coach, so that is what we're here for. If you will remember, in the last season, we had placed second overall. We were semifinalists overall. But we ended up losing to Mr. Jonathan in the semifinals, which is okay. As I said before, my main goal for Season 3 was I wanted to make it into the playoffs, and we certainly did that. So I think my goal again is I also want to make playoffs, and hopefully the team that I drafted, based on what I knew from last season and what I wanted to do for this season, I think I managed to draft a very strong team. Arguably the strongest team that I have drafted so far. But of course, we'll have to see how that goes with all the power rankings and all the talks about that, which will be coming up. So we actually just finished this draft earlier today, and I wanted to just push out this video to tell you guys what's going on, what I drafted. So just like last season, we will be going through, we will be examining the Pokemon I drafted. I'll be explaining a bit into why I drafted them, what purposes they might serve, and we'll just kind of go through it nice and easy. Alright, so to start off our draft, we have Heatran. Now, this is a bit different for me because in Season 3, I did not end up drafting a Tier 1 until my very last pick. But this season was different because for this one, I had plans for my Mega and I had plans for my Tier 1. And I really needed those two in order for the plans to go well, because the two really matched together. And Heatran was a part of that core. Excuse me. So obviously, Heatran, it's a very strong legendary Pokemon. As you can see, it's got a nice base stat total of 600 with a whopping 130 special attack. The only thing that's a bit lackluster is its speed, but that doesn't matter too much thanks to its bulky defenses and its strong fire and steel typing. It also has solid abilities in Flash Fire, which will give me a fire immunity if I ever need it, and will also boost all of my fire attacks. And we also have Flame Body, which means anytime that a Pokemon hits us with a physical attack, there is a, I believe, 1/3 chance that they will burn. Is it 1/3? I can't remember. But it's somewhere up there. But yeah, so Heatran is a very strong Pokemon. All around, it's pretty good. It's got a nice wide move pool, of course, including Fire and Steel moves, but it also has things like Earth Power. It also runs Stealth Rocks, it is Toxic, and I've seen Heatran all over the place. I know it has the potential to do so many different sets and so many different outcomes, so I'm hoping that Heatran will be a good sort of mixed offensive and support Pokemon for my team, especially for the Mega we drafted, which we get to look at next, which is Mega Sableye. So I decided I wanted to draft Mega Sableye, one because I know I wanted to use a stronger dark type compared to last season where we just had Liepard. And also I wanted to go back to my roots, which was making bulky teams, because I'm a bit notorious in this league for drafting a lot of bulk and being very good with drafting bulk. So I think Mega Sableye will be able to help that a lot. It only has a single weakness in Fairy, which is one of the main reasons I drafted Heatran, because Heatran, being Fire and Steel, quad resist Fairy moves. so it makes it an ideal switch in at almost any moment. Plus, it also has Flash Fire, so it can come in for those fire types that I can't burn with my Will-O-Wisp. We have a bunch of abilities, but that's mainly because we have the pre-Mega abilities in Keen Eye, Stall, and Prankster. Keen Eye and Stall I don't see myself using really at all, but Prankster can definitely be used. Maybe if I don't want to Mega yet, I can come in, I can get a Prankster Will-O-Wisp off or a Prankster Taunt off or whatever, just to stop whatever may be coming into the field, and they may expect me to do a Mega. I can always catch them off guard. But of course, after we Mega, we get the true ability and the true power of Mega Sableye, which is Magic Bounce. If you don't know what Magic Bounce does, Magic Bounce makes it so that anytime somebody uses a status move that tries to affect us, whether it be status effects like Will-O-Wisp or Sleep Powder, or they try to set up hazards like rocks or spikes, Magic Bounce will essentially bounce those back to the opponent, so it makes most status moves ineffective against us, which is very good. I tried the strategy once before when I had Mega Absol in Season 2, but Mega Absol is a different Pokemon because it's more offensive. I like Mega Sableye because it's more defensive. It even gets access to recover so it can heal itself. And as you can see, its defenses are very strong, coming in at base 125 defense, 115 special defense. And yeah, it also has a nice move pool, including offensive and lots of status moves to make advantage of those pranksters if I want to use them. But yeah, so Mega Sableye is more going to be sort of a bulky, I want to say, counter to a lot of Pokemon. Its burns will help me with a lot of physical Pokemon, and doing things like Taunt will help me with setup Pokemon. Oh boy, you're going to be a problem, aren't you? Sorry if you can hear my cat. I'm using my new microphone, and she picks up well on the new microphone. Hi, cat. Anyhow, so that's why I drafted the two in a pair, because they work really well together. Obviously, Heatran, it takes in all those fairy types and the fire types that Mega Sableye doesn't want to deal with. And in reverse, Mega Sableye helps out by being a nice counter to fighting types who Heatran doesn't really appreciate. And also just a generic physical wall for things like Earthquake users or other stuff. Would you be quiet? So yeah, I think this pair will work really well together, and I think their sort of cohesion should be strong for my team, and that's kind of what I'm going to be focusing on, is making sure this pair is strong as they can be. But next up, I noticed I needed to draft some power. We needed some strong offense on the team. And I figured, where's some better offense than a nice, strong dragon type? So we drafted Haxorus. So if you remember, I drafted a bit of an offensive dragon type last season in Dragonite. This is going to be a bit different, because rather than being sort of a mixed, we are full out physical offense. And we are also a little faster in exchange for bulk. Plus, our abilities make us more offensive. Mold Breaker makes it so that we can break through abilities, so we can do things like Earthquake Pokemon with Levitate, or we can do other things that abilities might focus on. I don't know. But we also have some interesting abilities. Rivalry is kind of hit or miss because it depends on gender, which is not really determined often. But Unnerve, I think I can do some interesting things with, because especially in a draft league, people like to run type effect and type nullification berries to sort of help them live hits. And Unnerve prevents Pokemon from eating their berry. So if I predict a Pokemon coming in that's going to have that berry to keep them alive, I can always run Unnerve, and I can use it so that way I can blast through them without having to worry about their berry. But yeah, Haxorus is a very good offensive Pokemon. It's a nice base 97 speed. It has super heavy offense, and it has a nice wide move pool. Of course, including dragon moves. But we also get a ton of moves. We get steel moves, we get fighting moves, we get poison, ground. I think we might even get a bug move or two. Haxorus has always been a Pokemon I wanted to use, but there's always been other Pokemon that have caught my eye. or other things I need out of a dragon type. Hi. So yeah, that is why I drafted Haxorus. I'm being a pest. Sorry, I'm talking to my cat. Okay. Next up, I decided to draft Alolan Cream. So this is a bit of an interesting spot. Originally here I had Sylveon in this place, because I thought Sylveon was a nice strong tier 2 fairy. It was very specially bulky, which I wanted, and that's what I thought I was going for. But then Sylveon got sniped for me at the beginning of round 3. So I decided, okay, let me at least secure my dragon type first. So I did that, and I was going to go for Florges instead, because it gave me another defogger and some wish support. And then Florges got sniped for me. So I said, before I get sniped again, let me snatch up my fairy type. So I drafted Alcremie. And Alcremie, it's not a bad fairy type at all. It does the same thing I wanted Sylveon and Florges to do, which was to be a special wall who's also a fairy type. But the difference between them is Sylveon and Florges both provide me with wish support, which can be good for healing up Pokemon like Haxorus or Heatran, who can't really do it themselves. Meanwhile, Alcremie is more focused on self-healing with Recover. But I still think it'll be good. Neither of its abilities are really of any use because they affect allies in double battles, and we are a single battle league. So unfortunately, we're essentially without an ability, but we do get a lot of powerful fairy moves. We also have a ton of coverage with things like Mystical Fire. We might be able to get some fighting moves, and we have a ton of status moves in case we want to do setup, in case we need some healing. My cat is attacking me. But yeah. So while it wasn't my first pick necessarily, it's still along the same lines as the other two Pokemon I wanted to get. I just think those other Pokemon had something that Alcremie just didn't. But regardless, I still think it will be a good pick and it will serve the team well, since it's still specially defensive fairy type. Are you leaving now? You're done bugging me? Okay. Next up, we have Crowbat. I drafted Crowbat mainly because I needed a strong speed tier, and 130 speed is pretty strong. Excuse me. So Crowbat's actually a Pokemon I played around with a bit in one of the off seasons I was a participant in. I used it for a bit, and I found it very useful, and I wanted to use it in my Season 3 team, but I had other plans with Salazzle, so I decided to go with Crowbat instead. Alright, went with Salazzle then, I'm picking Crowbat now. 130 speed, which is incredible. Outspeeds a lot of Pokemon. There are only a few select Pokemon that can outspeed Crowbat, in which case we do have counters for. Inner Focus is ability we won't use much because it focuses on flinching, but Infiltrator can be a very useful ability. If you don't know what Infiltrator is, it basically bypasses things like Substitute. So if someone tries to put a Substitute so they can set up, instead of hitting the Substitute directly, we can bypass the Substitute and hit them, which can work out better for us so we don't let them set up. And the Crowbat has a nice wide move pool. I know it's mostly a physical attacker, but it can be a special one because we get tons of coverage moves on both sides. For physical, we get things like Steel Wing, Brave Bird, Crunch. And on the special side, we get things like Heat Wave, Hurricane, and Sludge Bomb. So Crowbat overall, I think will be a good pick, especially since it has that nice 130 speed tier. It'll be able to catch a lot of Pokemon off guard, especially if they try to do sub-setup sets, like things like Sub-Mind, which I've tried before, or Sub-Toxic. So yeah, I think that Crowbat will be a good addition to the team. Alright, going into our sixth Pokemon of the draft, caught myself there, we have Chestnut. So Chestnut's a fun Pokemon. I think it kind of gets overlooked as a grass fighting type, although there are only 3, but I think Chestnut gets kind of overlooked. It's very defensively bulky and has some good offense. One of the main problems with Chestnut is, of course, its typing. If you don't know, grass typing has a lot of weaknesses, and fighting doesn't really fix that. It just adds more. But Chestnut is still a powerhouse, and it is still a defensive tank, especially for the things it can wall, things like fighting moves or water moves. For our abilities, we have Overgrow, which is standard for grass starters. It will boost the power of any grass moves we use for, I think, under 30% health. Whatever red health is, might be 25. But yeah, it'll boost our power under a certain health threshold. Or we have Bulletproof, which is an interesting ability. Basically, it will counter out some specific moves that are like projectile based. Things like Aura Sphere and Dragon Pulse will all get blocked out. There's a more extensive list, but those are the main ones I can focus on now. Plus, Chestnut has a lot of utility. It has Leech Seed, which you can set up for itself or for another Pokemon on the team in order to get some health drain over time. It has access to Spikes, which is a different kind of hazard we didn't have before. It has Spiky Shield, which is basically Protect, but if a Pokemon uses a physical attack against it, then they will take damage. So overall, I think Chestnut is a nice physical wall to add to the team. Has a lot of useful utility that we can use on it, and it has a pretty powerful attack stat. Plus, overall, its stats aren't bad. Even its speed stat at 64 isn't awful. So I think for a wall, this is actually a pretty good grab for us, especially since it's a nice grass wall. And you know what we can do with nice grass walls? Shout out to Tangrowth, which unfortunately did not get drafted, but who knows? There's always next time. Or I can just grab Tangrowth if I'm feeling it. Anyways, let us get on to Pokemon number 7. We are over halfway there, and the 7th Pokemon we grabbed is Quagsire. Look at this little guy. He's so happy. But yes, we managed to snag the Quag, because I was looking before, when I was looking at my water type, bulky water, which is Blastoise, I noticed that one of the biggest problems I had with Blastoise was that it didn't have any reliable recovery, and so it would always get chipped down and eventually die. Quagsire does not have that problem, because not only does it have Water Absorb, which will absorb any water type move and heal it instead, but it also has access to Recover, so that way it can heal itself up. So I'm sure you can see the trend here. We have a lot of Pokemon who are very bulky and have access to healing moves. I don't ever want to be the guy who just sits there and stalls, but I'm saying we have those options. But yeah, so Quagsire, it's a nice water ground type, very bulky, and I think is a great pick for a tier 4. Water Absorb is going to be a good ability. Damp is kind of situational, especially since Pokemon don't usually run Self-Destruct or Explosion all too often. And it would even be hard to predict when and who's running it. But Unaware is a good one, because Unaware will ignore stat changes from a foe. So if they boost their offensive abilities, Quagsire will just take normal damage, and if they boost their defenses, he will do normal damage. So overall, I think Quagsire is a nice pick. It's very bulky. It has access to some good coverage and some good status moves. And I think it's a perfect addition to the team. One thing I would like is if it had rocks, but I think we have 3 rockers and then Chestnut as a spiker. So overall, I think our hazards are pretty covered. And next up, we are covering more of our hazard removal. And we grabbed the mascot of our team, Cryogonal. So Cryogonal, obviously, as you can see, is a nice fast Pokemon at 105. It has some good special attack and some very good special defense. Of course, the only problem with Cryogonal is it is an ice type, so it has no resists other than other ice, and it has tons of weaknesses, but Having that special defense is still good for things like water types who we can come in and freeze dry, or for things like grass types who may try to get some special moves off. Plus, I wanted to grab Cryo because it was a good hazard remover. It actually has access to both Defog and Rapid Spin, so that way normally I could run Rapid Spin, but if I think they're going to try and use a Ghost type to counter my Rapid Spinning, I can always run Defog instead. Its move pool is kind of lackluster. It mostly has Ice with a few coverage moves and things like Water Pulse and Flash Cannon. But even with that, I've used this all the way back in Season 1, and it did a fair job at holding its own. So I think that it should be fine to hold its own this season. We'll just have to see. But yeah, so it's nice and fast. Gives us a little more hazard removal. It's a strong ice type. Overall, I think it's pretty solid. So next on our list, we have... This is not the final. I don't know why I thought this final, because this was the Pokemon I grabbed most recently. So originally for this slot, I had wanted Raichu. Not Alolan Raichu like we had last season, just plain old Raichu. Because it was fast, it weighs 110. It had Lightning Rod, which could be a good ability, and was made it immune to electric types. But that actually got sniped from us before we could draft it. So then I drafted a placeholder, and I was thinking it over, and I was watching the transactions go by, and I decided to grab Electabuzz. So now some of you might be thinking, why would I grab Electabuzz over Electivire, which is fully evolved form and is a lot stronger? Well, one of the main things there is the speed stat. Electabuzz obviously sits at a nice comfortable 105 speed, while Electivire drops all the way down to 90, which we already had. And we do have 105 too, but having multiple 105s is better than having multiple 90s in my opinion. So having that speed is one of the reasons, and also because we are not fully evolved, we can make use of the Eviolite item, which if given to a non-fully evolved Pokemon, will boost their defense, special defense, by 50%, which is very good. Plus, even whether you look at both of them, they still have like the same move pool. So if you look at Electabuzz, he has a lot of coverage moves that go all over the place. He has fighting moves, he has ground moves, he has access to Psychic, he has all of the elemental punches. He has Iron Tail. He has a surprising amount of coverage. And he is a strong speed tier. So I decided I would draft him. His two abilities might not be too useful. Static is every time someone hits us with a physical move, there is a same chance as Flame Body that I don't remember to paralyze. And Vital Spirit just makes it so we can't go to sleep. Vital Spirit could always be good for known Spore users like Amoonguss who didn't get drafted, or Pokemon who may try to Hypnosis us if that ever comes to it. So I actually like Electabuzz in that regard because it's kind of unpredictable, because if you go for physical, there's always a chance you can get paired, or if I come in on a known sleeper Pokemon, then I just can't fall asleep. Plus its coverage moves actually makes it very useful, and being pure electric means we only have one weakness to ground. And this also gives us a Volt Turner, which I didn't bring up much, but U-Turn, Volt Switch we have a ton of, and Electabuzz is one of those with Volt Switch. So yeah, overall I think it's a very solid Tier 5 electric type. There are other ones I could always grab or switch to if I don't feel comfortable with Electabuzz. Like I can always switch to Electivire, or I can go to Manectric, who is another Pokemon who is on the table. But I like Electabuzz. I think he'll be a good fit as a low tier electric type, and he has some nice coverage which can prove useful in sticky situations. Up next we have the second last Pokemon of our draft. No, that's a lie. Third last. You already peeked at the other ones. Whoops. Anyways, for the second last, I grafted Azelf as a nice fast Tier 2 Psychic type. My choices here were either Azelf or to grab Alakazam instead. I decided to grab Azelf because I felt like with its, even though it had a lower speed, with its balanced attack and special attack, and it had more access to utility moves such as Stealth Rock, Light Screen, Taunt, I thought overall it might be a better Pokemon, especially since it's a little bit more overall bulky than a Pokemon like Alakazam. But yeah, I needed a nice fast Psychic type. Azelf fits the bill. It's one of our Stealth Rockers. It has U-Turn. It has tons of status moves, including setup like Nasty Plot, which I believe it just got this generation thanks to Crown Tundra DLC. And it has a lot of coverage. It has fire moves, it has electric moves, it has ghost, dark. I think it might even have a bug move or two. Yeah. And with its mixed offenses, it'll be kind of unpredictable whether I want to run in a special set, whether I want to run a physical set, or whether I want to run a mixed set in order to try and trip up some people who are expecting one or the other. So yeah, overall I think Azelf is a pretty solid Pokemon. It's another Levitator, which means we have our third ground immunity, unless they have Mold Breaker. So ground types are going to have a bit of a hard time against us, but I liked Azelf. I think it's a good, fast Pokemon. Really fits in with our current speed tiers. Really helps tidy things up a bit, even though we kind of fell apart a bit. But it's still a good pick. Next up, we have our second last pick, for real this time, which is Porygon Z. Going back to other things, I used Porygon 2 in Season 1, because I had something else before it, but it wasn't really serving its purpose, so I changed out for the bulky Porygon 2. But I wanted to draft Porygon Z this season. One, because it had a nice speed tier and a super high special attack stat, plus with all of its coverage moves, because normal types get a hell of a lot of coverage, it can make it a very versatile Pokemon that can be hard to predict. It also has lots of useful abilities. Adaptability might not be too useful, because that means, or not adaptability, analytic is the one I'm thinking of, because analytic will drop, or will make you do more damage, but you have to be slower, and with base 90, there will be only a select handful of things that we will be slower than, and I don't even think I'd want to stand on them then. But we do have two useful abilities, Adaptability, which boosts the power of our normal moves, and Download, which will boost one of our two offenses by 1, depending on their defense. So I want to try and swap in on very special weak Pokemon so we can get that special boost, and then we can just go to town. But yeah. So I drafted Porygon Z because it was nice and fast. It has a hell of a lot of coverage. Any type you want to think Porygon Z gets, it likely gets, besides things like rock moves. So yeah, it's pretty overall offensive. It's a nice pick to round out our offenses a bit. And I think it will serve a nice purpose with all of its coverage and all of its setup and all of this and that. Normal types are scary if you pick the right ones. And last but not least, we have Illumise, who is a Tier 5 bug. So Illumise, as you can see, it's pretty weak stats-wise. It kind of looks a little dopey. So you're probably asking, why did I draft it? And for one simple reason made up of 2 words. Prankster, Defog. If you remember what Prankster does, it will boost the priority of any status move I use. And thanks to it having Defog, we now have access to possible Prankster Defogs, which will make it so that almost all the time, whenever we come in and we want to use Defog, we can come in, Prankster Defog, guaranteed to get those rocks off the field, and it makes it a lot easier for us. But it also has some other good priority moves that you can use with Prankster, things like taunt and things like, I think sleep powder can get if I want to try that around. If I don't want to do that, I can always go with tinted lenses to boost, which boosts non-super effective moves power. So I can boost like bug moves, I can boost like, I think it gets a couple of flying moves in there. Its move pool is kind of shallow, but I mostly drafted it because the low tier access to Prankster with its defog and other things will make it a very versatile mon that's good for setup. Sorry, my cat just hit me. What do you want? He came back in to bug me. So yeah, it was just kind of a nice little low tier to wrap up the team, because as you can remember, one of my things from last season is I wanted to make my tier 5s a little more useful, and I feel like Illumise and Electabuzz are going to be a little more useful than Unfezant and Liepard. I always get the pre-Evo and the final Evo mixed up. But yeah, so that is our draft for Season 12. I'll run through it one more time. So we have Heatran, Mega Sableye, Haxorus, Alcremie, Crowbat, Chestnut, Quagsire, Cryogonal, Electabuzz, Azelf, Porygon Z, and Illumise. So how this is going to work for uploading, as you know, I'm also kind of doing the Leaf Green Randomizer Nuzlocke as well. So how I want to try and do it is the randomizer will probably go up during the middle of the week, so like maybe like Wednesday, Thursday, and then probably the Platinum Draft League videos will go up on the weekend. That's at least how I want to plan it. If I feel like it's too much with my current workload, then I'll just drop the randomizer for a bit until I feel comfortable picking it back up. And I'll explain this more as time goes along. But yeah, so that's the plan right now. That's the draft. I hope you are all excited for another season of the Platinum Draft League. Hopefully, I drafted a strong team, strong enough to take us to that number 1 position. That is oh so tasty. But yeah, that is all I have to say for now. I have been Monotone Excitement, and I hope you all have a good morning, good evening, or good afternoon whenever you're watching this stupid video at. Goodbye.